Hey there, and welcome to another Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here with us today. We are going to be decoding some seriously ancient biblical wisdom. You know, if you've ever heard the phrase, children are a blessing, which, let's be honest, is usually said right before a toddler throws a massive tantrum in the middle of a grocery store, you might have wondered, where does that specific idea actually come from? Like, what did it mean thousands of years ago, and what does it mean for us today? Well, we're going to unpack exactly that, and we'll be focusing specifically on Psalm 127.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First, we'll decode Psalm 127. Then, we'll look at wealth in ancient times. Next, we'll unpack the arrows in a quiver metaphor, discuss parenting responsibilities, and finally, we'll clarify the blessing.
Section 1. Decoding Psalm 127. The anchor verse. So before we can really grasp the message, we got to understand the messenger and the setting. This text is actually one of only 2 psalms attributed to King Solomon, and historically it's categorized as a song of ascent. Basically, it was a road trip song. Families would literally sing these lyrics as they traveled on pilgrimages up to Jerusalem, intentionally reminding themselves to depend on God. I mean, I can only imagine the absolute chaos of an ancient family road trip, making those lyrical reminders pretty much essential.
And that brings us right to the core text. Psalm 127 verse 3 says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him." Now, what's super interesting here is the specific word choice. Depending on the translation you're reading, you might see the words blessing or gift instead of heritage and reward, but they're all pointing to the exact same foundational idea.
To really grasp this, let's peel back the linguistic layers for a second and look at the original language. The Hebrew word used here is nachala. It literally translates to inheritance. Solomon is affirming this deeply held belief in the ancient Near East. Children weren't just some biological inevitability. No, they were viewed as God's gracious gift, actively imparted to parents as an inheritance to be carefully stewarded. All right, moving to section 2. Wealth in ancient times, security and procreation. To fully appreciate why an inheritance of children was such a massive deal back then, we kind of have to reset our modern perspectives and look closely at the historical context of the ancient Near East.
And the stark difference between then and now is absolutely fascinating. I mean, today, when we think of security, our minds immediately go to financial portfolios, 401ks, retirement accounts, health insurance, all that stuff. But ancient security? That was built entirely on large families. Having many sons and daughters was literally the primary source of physical and economic strength. A household with lots of kids meant a robust workforce for the fields and a really strong defense against enemies. Simply put, more children equaled less vulnerability.
This idea actually builds chronologically right across the Old Testament text. The command to multiply wasn't just a cultural preference, it was a divine mandate for God's covenant people. Starting right at creation in Genesis 1, God says, "Be fruitful and multiply." Then, post-flood in Genesis 9, God tells Noah to increase in number. And by the time we reach the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12, the promise is, "I will make you into a great nation." So family size was absolutely foundational to the physical, emotional, and economic survival of ancient Israel.
Section 3. Arrows in a quiver, a poetic metaphor. Now we're going to pivot to one of the most dynamic and honestly most famous parts of this text. Solomon shifts gears from talking about an inheritance to painting this vivid, high-energy military picture.
Listen to verses 4 and 5. "Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them." Just visualize that imagery for a second, will you? The father is portrayed as a fierce warrior, and a soldier with a quiver full of arrows, he is fully armed. He is dangerous to his enemies, and he is entirely ready for the battle ahead.
But here is the real aha moment of this entire metaphor. Arrows are meant to be launched. They aren't designed to just sit safely in the quiver forever looking pretty. In families established on this foundation, the text views children as a vital weapon. They are carefully crafted, aimed, and eventually sent out into the world with the ultimate goal to advance the cause of their faith.
Section 4. The parenting responsibility, shaping the arrows. Of course, crafting an arrow that actually flies straight and true takes work, like a lot of work. Raising children requires a massive investment of time, resources, energy, and, of course, love.
Historically and practically speaking, children served a dual role. First, they provided future protection and security for aging parents. Grown children safeguarded the family inheritance from anyone who might try to take legal or financial advantage of the elderly.
They carried on the family heritage. But beyond just the practical stuff, the source material highlights a profound spiritual element. Children uniquely model character qualities like humility and simple trust that ancient texts say God desires in his followers. Yes, they are an enormous responsibility, no doubt about it, but in this historical context, they were also considered one of life's absolute greatest assets.
So how exactly were these arrows supposed to be shaped? Well, the text outlines some instructions that carried really deep meaning. Step 1. Accept children as a legacy and a gift, not a burden or liability. Step 2. Teach them God's ways continually. This was a direct command to the ancient Israelites that, as the source material notes, carries over to religious parents today. And step 3. The ultimate end goal is to produce wise children who honor their faith throughout their lives. As later biblical texts acknowledge, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded.
Section 5. Clarifying the blessing, nuance, and empathy. Now, I want to slow down our pace for just a second here, because whenever we discuss ancient texts regarding family and procreation, it is absolutely crucial to handle them with care, empathy, and proper theological nuance.
Crucially, childlessness is not a curse. When Solomon says that children are a blessing from the Lord, this absolutely does not mean that God has withheld his blessing from childless couples, nor does it mean that having children is the single, exclusive sign of divine favor in a person's life. The source material is very, very clear in making this distinction.
So the crucial point is this. What Solomon is really emphasizing is the nature of the gift when it is given. Children are to be received as a beautiful expression of goodness and grace. They should never be viewed as a curse or just some mere inconvenience interrupting a busy modern life. When a family is blessed with children, they're intended to bring immense joy, pleasure, security, and reward to that home.
Which brings us to a provocative question I really want to leave you reflecting on today. How are you shaping the arrows in your quiver? Whether you're a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, or a mentor, you likely have an opportunity to shape the next generation. Are you investing the time to craft them carefully? Are you preparing them to be launched into the world for a greater purpose? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking great questions, and I'll see you next time.